Hi folks, Lou here to talk about whether the game industry is still a meritocracy. That is, that the best rises to the top. Well, I think that may be true of employees in the game industry, but it's no longer true about games. And I first noticed this attitude from a video game site where some of the things we're seeing in tabletop games have been occurring for several years in video. And that is, you just have to get lucky to sell well with a game, even if it's a really good game, because people don't learn about it, discoverability, and there's so many other games, and being a good game is no longer enough. Now, this brought to mind, oddly enough, that this happens in other industries. For example, my favorite example is Paul McCartney had a hit when I was living in England or visiting England called Mull of Kintyre that was #1 for 6 weeks. I have never heard it played in the United States, ever. And I do listen to oldies stations. Now, why was that? A lot of pop music is popular in one country and not in another. And you have odd things like I was in England listening to the radio, somebody had it on, and I heard a song that was a Burt Bacharach song, and that's the kind of songs that Dionne Warwick made famous and made her career from, and yet it wasn't Dionne Warwick singing. I said, "Who is this?" "Cilla Black," say my family. "Who's Cilla Black?" Well, in England, she was the equivalent of Dionne Warwick. She got hold of Burt Bacharach songs before Dionne Warwick songs could get across the pond to England, and she put out a version, and so people knew those Burt Bacharach songs through Cilla Black and not through Dionne Warwick. Now, is there any merit to this one way or another? No. It's a matter of getting there first, in this case, of timing. And there are lots of cases where games succeed or fail because of timing. And it's not the kind of timing that you can predict. I have another video which discusses how it's really impossible to predict how well a game is going to do. And that's especially true nowadays when there's so much luck involved. Well, this is kind of depressing because we used to think that if we made good games, especially in the video game industry, they would rise to the top. And nowadays, there may be some truth to that still in the desktop or the tabletop industry, but in video games, unless you have a vast amount of money to advertise with, you cannot be sure that people will even know that your game exists. There are just too many games being published, and we're getting more and more that way in the tabletop industry as well. So what can you do? Well, you can keep making games, you can keep trying to market your games in every way you can think of, but fundamentally, you're stuck. Thanks for listening.